So let's see. So let's pick up where we left off today. We always talk about the same topic though, but we talked about the cultural differences between Japan and the US. And we talked about like appearance. So for example, what we talked about was 顔が小さい. As you know, that means like your face is small, but that phrase is used as a compliment in Japan. But in the US, I don't think it's a compliment. But, you know, we talked about some compliments. 顔が小さい, what else? 顔が小さい. 鼻が高い. 鼻が高い means your nose is high. It's a compliment, but in the US, it might sound insulting though. Anyways, we just looked at good aspects of appearance. I think, well, this time I want to talk about that aspect of like appearance. I mean, for example, like I feel like, well, Japanese people tend to make fun of other people's appearances compared to other countries. For example, this is not a good thing, but I think this is true. So I think people who are bald, fat, and short tend to be ridiculed here in Japan. I think this happens sometimes. For example, when I was watching a Japanese TV program, I saw comedians making fun of a comedian by saying, your legs are short. And other people were laughing, looking at the comedian, your legs are short. And I think the reason this happens is that a lot of people laugh at them. So this happens. But I think in the US, this is not acceptable. Maybe. I think it's not common to make fun of other people's appearances in the US. But I think in Japan, some people make fun of other people. For example, people might say that person is fat, that person is bald. I think this is pretty common here. What about the US?
Yeah, I think definitely nowadays, like publicly, that's very much not okay. I guess I don't watch a lot of like comedians or anything, but I would imagine that especially nowadays in recent years, like the past 10 years or so, yeah, that would not be okay for like someone to like a comedian to say something about someone else being fat or whatever, short or bald or whatever. I guess maybe short is a little bit, I think you can get away with calling people like short more so because that's just, I don't know, that doesn't seem quite as bad. But nowadays, yeah, there's very much a lot about like body positivity, like being accepting of people's appearance or their body shape or whatever. And there's a lot of emphasis on political correctness, just like again, not saying anything that could be interpreted as ridiculing or hateful or things like that. Like 20 years ago or something like that, I think it would have been much easier and much more common to get away with making fun of other people's appearances. But nowadays, like publicly or, you know, even semi-publicly, like that's not accepted. You probably have heard of like cancel culture, you know? Like,
yeah, I've heard of that. Cancel culture.
Like nowadays, I think if a comedian went on and like was making fun of someone for being fat, I think they would get canceled. Like a bunch of people would just be like, nope, like you're done. Like we're not gonna support you anymore. Like goodbye. Because that's not okay to make fun of other people for being fat. Now, granted, even it's hard to say because I think children and like high school students, you know, like when you're still a kid, when you're not an adult, it's much more common to make fun of other people. Like that's just how it is. So I can't really say if I'm experiencing it less because there's an actual shift in culture or if it's just because I'm an adult now and me and my friends are all more mature. So we aren't going to make fun of other people because we realize that's not nice, you know? But I do think probably culturally it's shifted as well. But even nowadays, you know, I do know some people who will still kind of make fun of other people for being fat or whatever. I feel like bald isn't as much of a big one here. Like I don't think people get made fun of for being bald, really. Not as much as in the same way as in Japan. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, you answered my question. I think we're almost in the same situation because nowadays, you know, in the past, making fun of other people's appearances was like accepted. I think it was accepted before, but nowadays, you know, people don't think that's a good thing. So if you make fun of other people's appearances in public, they can't get away with it. The way of thinking is changing nowadays. So
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Cancel culture. And you said political correctness. I was Googling the word political correctness.
Yeah, it's just that the way of like speaking or saying things or writing things or whatever without being offensive to anyone and without using any kind of words or terms that could be interpreted as hate speech or discriminatory or, anything like that.
I feel like the US is much stricter than Japan because there are various kinds of people in the US. I mean, like white people, black people, Asian people, and there are like many different kinds of people in the US. You guys have like various regions as well, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like compared to other countries, in Japan, there's just Asian people here. Of course,
Right.
there are, bunch of different kinds of people here, but in most cases, most people are just Asian and our appearances are almost the same.
Right.
And we don't have religions usually. Of course, some people have like some religions though, but in most cases, we don't have religions. I think that's one of the differences.
Sorry, could you say that? What did you say? Did you say races or religious or what? Religions?
Like Christian, Buddhism, Buddhist, those beliefs are called religion. My pronunciation is not good, but I think,
yeah. I think if you can try to find the L, I know that the R's and the L's are difficult, especially in the same word, but religions. Yeah, religion.
L sound is pretty difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just like you have to really use the tongue against your teeth. Like religion. Yeah, religion. Yeah, there you. Yeah. Oh, the first one was good.
Religions.
Yeah, that was better. Yeah.
I always have a hard time pronouncing L sound.
Yeah, I know it can be tricky. For me, it was the one in between the ra sound was difficult. But yeah, I think, anyways, I think you're right though, because we have so much more diversity of race and religion and all of that stuff. There's a lot more pushback. Like if you do say something that's rude or discriminatory or close to that, then there are going to be a lot more people who are like, hey, that's not okay. Whereas, in Japan, I think it's much more homogenous. So it's easier to get away with making fun of or using terms that could be interpreted as offensive for other types of people.
Do you think white people tend to gather together and black people tend to gather together? What's your opinion in the US?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Usually, I think so. Not to say there are plenty of cases where, black people and white people are friends and stuff, but I still think that people tend to kind of, find other people who are similar to themselves, just because then you feel like you fit in more and stuff. But not to say that that's not absolute. There are plenty, like I have black friends and, but anyways, it looks like we're going to run out of time. It's going to cut us off, but.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you, you too. Take care.
See you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.